They say life after 50 is decline. The body slows, the opportunities shrink, the world moves faster, and society whispers your best years are behind you. But here's the truth. Resilience doesn't peak in your 20s or 30s. It peaks after 50. Why? Because by then, you've faced storms younger men can't even imagine. You've lived through heartbreaks that felt like the end of the world. You've stood in front of financial wreckage and rebuilt. You've buried loved ones, faced health scares, and endured setbacks that would break most people. And yet, you're still here, standing tall, stronger than ever. At 25, resilience is noisy. It's about how many hours you can grind, how many shots you can drink, how many risks you can take without thinking. At 50, resilience is quieter, but infinitely more powerful. It's waking up at 5 a.m., making coffee without groaning like a dying walrus, and facing the day with calm strength. Younger men confuse speed with strength. Older men understand that real power is endurance. And here's the secret nobody tells you. Men over 50 are more adaptable, more emotionally balanced, and more unshakable than they've ever been. If this message speaks to you already, do one thing right now. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep building resilience together, because this is only the beginning. Now let's break it down. When you're young, every problem feels like the end of the world. Your first heartbreak feels like death. Your first failure at work feels like your future is ruined. Your first financial loss feels like you'll never recover. But by the time you're 50, you've seen enough storms to know this too shall pass. Think back. How many times did you think you were finished? The layoff that scared you half to death, the investment that blew up in your face, the betrayal you never saw coming, the illness that shook you. But you endured. And here you are. Scarred, maybe, but standing. That's resilience. Not looking untouched, but being unbreakable. Younger men brag about their victories. Older men carry the quiet power of survival. It's like trees in a storm. A young tree, thin and shallow-rooted, can snap under pressure, but an old oak, its bark is scarred, its branches weathered, but its roots are deep. It's been through 100 storms already, and that's why it stands firm. Men over 50 are the oaks, and your scars aren't shameful. They're proof you've been tested and refused to fall. And let's be real, sometimes resilience after 50 looks a little ridiculous. You pull a muscle just by sleeping wrong. You make a noise every time you sit down, even if you're just tying your shoes. But here's the difference. You don't stop. You push through, laugh it off, and keep moving. That's resilience too. Not pretending you never fall, but proving you always rise. So remember this. The storms you've already survived aren't signs of weakness. They're your evidence, and they're why the storms ahead won't break you either. When you're young, you think emotions make you strong. You think shouting louder makes you right. You think anger means power, but ask any man over 50, and he'll tell you the truth. Anger is weakness, because anger hands the other person control. At 25, you argue to win. At 50, you walk away to protect your peace. Think about it. How many young men waste hours fighting online, defending their pride to strangers on the internet? Meanwhile, a man over 50 knows the real victory is turning off the phone, pouring himself a coffee, and moving on. That's resilience. It's not about being unfeeling. It's about being unshaken. When you've lived long enough, you realize life isn't fair. People can be cruel, and problems never stop coming. But you also realize this. Most of what upsets you doesn't deserve your energy. A resilient man after 50 chooses his battles carefully. He knows when silence is sharper than words. He knows walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom. And this isn't just emotional strength, it's survival. Because nothing drains you faster than being pulled into fights that don't matter. So while younger men waste energy exploding over every insult, older men stay calm, conserve their strength, and win the war instead of every battle. That's why men over 50 carry a power that's rare in today's world, the power of peace. You know what separates men over 50 from younger men? The value of time. At 20, you think you have forever, so you waste hours debating pizza toppings, binge-watching shows, and worrying about what everyone thinks of you. At 50, you know time is the one thing you'll never get back. And that knowledge sharpens you like a blade. You stop chasing meaningless arguments. You stop trying to impress people who don't matter. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. Because you've learned, perfect moments don't exist. You create them. This is why men over 50 are resilient. They live with urgency, but not panic. They've seen how fast decades disappear, and instead of wasting time, they make it count. Younger men say yes to everything. Older men know the power of no. No to fake friendships. No to wasting energy on people who drain them. No to chasing applause from people who will forget them tomorrow. And here's the funny part. When you're younger, you think saying no will make you lose opportunities. But by the time you're 50, you realize no actually protects your real opportunities. Time isn't money. Time is life. And that realization makes every day more valuable. That's why resilience isn't just about surviving hard moments. It's about guarding your time like it's treasure. Because it is. And if you value this truth as much as I do one thing right now. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep these lessons flowing every week. That way, this wisdom doesn't just stay in this video. It becomes part of your life. Younger men measure strength by how much weight they can lift, how many hours they can party, or how little they can sleep. Older men measure strength by how long they can keep showing up day after day, without breaking down. At 25, you're proud of your six-pack. At 50, you're proud that your doctor nods when looking at your cholesterol numbers. The truth is, resilience after 50 is built on discipline, not ego. You've learned that what you put in your body matters. That exercise isn't punishment, it's medicine. That sleep isn't laziness, it's fuel. You don't need to train like an athlete. You just need to be consistent. A walk every morning, smarter food choices, stretching, breathing, sleeping deeply. And yes, sometimes you get those funny reminders that you're not 25 anymore. You throw your back out reaching for the remote. You twist your neck just by sleeping wrong. But the difference is, you don't quit. You adapt. That's resilience. Not pretending your body hasn't changed, but respecting it enough to take care of it. Because resilience isn't just mental, it's physical. And a man who cares for his body after 50 isn't just surviving, he's preparing to thrive for decades more. In your 20s, you chase applause. In your 30s, you chase money. But by the time you hit 50, you realize applause fades and money can vanish. What lasts is purpose. Younger men want to be seen. Older men want to make an impact. At 20, you brag about what you own. At 50, you invest in what matters. Your family, your craft, your legacy. And here's the irony. The less you care about validation, the more respect you earn. Because people can feel the difference between ego and purpose. Think about it. The man desperate to prove himself is loud, restless, and insecure. The man who lives with purpose is calm, steady, and unshakable. Purpose doesn't have to mean changing the whole world. It can mean raising strong children, building a business that outlives you, mentoring younger men so they don't repeat your mistakes. That's resilience, living for something bigger than yourself. And if you're still listening now, you're clearly a man who values purpose. So take 2 seconds, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us. Because every week, we build these lessons into a stronger life. Purpose is the fuel. Resilience is the engine, and together they create a man who cannot be broken. Here's something people don't talk about enough. Resilience isn't just what you face alone. It's also the people you choose to stand with. When you're young, friendships are shallow. You hang out with people who make you laugh, who party with you, who distract you from loneliness. By 50, you've lost some people, cut ties with others, and been betrayed by a few. But the ones who remain, They're solid. At 20, your best friend is the guy who shows up with beer. At 50, your best friend is the guy who shows up with a truck when you need to move furniture, and maybe brings ibuprofen for your back afterward. Resilient men over 50 understand loyalty. They know the value of brotherhood. They know resilience grows stronger when you don't carry the weight of life alone. And let's not forget family. Maybe you're a father, a husband, a grandfather. Maybe you've built a tribe that looks to you for guidance. That responsibility is heavy, but carrying it is what makes you stronger. Younger men think resilience means independence, never needing anyone. Older men know true resilience means interdependence, choosing the right people and standing strong together. Because at the end of the day, resilience isn't just about enduring. It's about enduring with honor, alongside those who matter most. The world is changing faster than ever. Technology, culture, even the way we communicate. Everything evolves by the minute. And here's what makes men over 50 resilient. Adaptability. You've lived long enough to see the world flip upside down more than once. You've seen economies crash and recover. You've gone from landline phones to smartphones, from handwritten letters to video calls in your pocket. You've learned that change isn't the enemy. It's the test. And the fact that you're still here, navigating a world that moves at lightning speed, proves you're more adaptable than you thought. Let's be real, if you figured out how to text with your thumbs after 40, you're basically a ninja. If you learned how to send emojis to your kids, pay bills online, or even run a business from your laptop, congratulations. That's resilience in action. Younger men fear change because they don't know stability yet. Men over 50, you've built stability. You've rebuilt after setbacks. You know you can handle another shift. Resilience means this. While the world panics at change, you adapt, and that's why you keep moving forward when others are left behind. When you're young, every problem feels like a disaster. At 20, a breakup feels like the end of the world. At 30, losing a job feels like your life is ruined. But by the time you're 50, you've seen enough to know. Life keeps moving. You've survived heartbreak, maybe divorce. You've survived layoffs, maybe business failures. You've survived health scares, financial disasters, family crises. And here you are. Still breathing, still standing, still stronger. That's wisdom. That's perspective. When you've lived long enough, you don't panic the way you used to. You pause, you breathe, you think, will this matter in 5 years? Most of the time, the answer is no. Perspective is resilience, because perspective teaches you not to waste energy on what doesn't matter. And that's why men over 50 are dangerous in the best way possible. Because they don't overreact. They respond with calm, with clarity, with patience. And in a world full of noise, that calmness is rare power. You know what really builds resilience after 50? The word number. When you're younger, you say yes to everything. Yes to parties you don't care about. Yes to people who don't value you. Yes to wasting time, energy, and money just to fit in. By 50, you've learned that every yes costs something, and resilience means protecting your time, your energy, and your peace. No to fake friendships, no to chasing validation, no to overcommitting to people who never show up for you. Because every no to the wrong thing is a yes to the right thing, a yes to your health, a yes to your family, a yes to your peace of mind. And here's the truth. Saying no is one of the hardest lessons in life, but once you master it, you stop living for others and start living for yourself. So before we move to the final lessons, let me remind you, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and keep building this kind of strength with us every week. Because just like the word no, those 2 clicks are simple, but they protect what matters. One of the greatest strengths of men over 50 is this. You don't just survive for yourself, you lead others. When you're young, you're too busy proving yourself to guide anyone else. You're chasing recognition, status, and validation. But by the time you've hit 50, You've collected something younger men don't have yet. Tested wisdom. You've made mistakes. Plenty of them, and that's exactly why you're qualified to lead. Because leadership doesn't come from being flawless. It comes from being experienced. Think about this. A younger man may read about failure in a book. A man over 50 has lived it. And because he's lived it, he can guide others through it. Mentorship doesn't always mean standing on a stage. Sometimes it means teaching your son how to stay calm under pressure. Sometimes it means pulling aside a younger co-worker and saying, "Don't make the same mistake I did." Sometimes it's showing through your actions that strength doesn't mean noise. It means consistency. And here's the beautiful truth. Resilience multiplies when it's shared. When you mentor, you pass down resilience like an inheritance. When you lead, you don't just make yourself stronger, you make others unbreakable too. That's leadership, not demanding respect, but earning it. Not shouting, but guiding. Not chasing followers, but shaping men who can stand on their own. Money has a way of humbling us all. When you're young, money feels endless. It comes in, it goes out, and you don't think much about it. You blow it on parties, gadgets, status symbols, things you think define you. But by 50, most men have learned this lesson the hard way. Money comes and goes, but resilience is what keeps you afloat. You've seen markets crash. You've seen jobs disappear overnight. You've seen businesses fail, maybe even your own. And yet, here you are. That's financial resilience. It's not about being a millionaire. It's about being smart enough to survive the storms, to rebuild when things collapse, to know the difference between wants and needs. Younger men flex with cars they can't afford and watches they bought on credit. Older men flex with peace of mind, knowing their bills are paid, their debts are handled, their families are secure. And here's the irony. The less you need to prove with money, the more powerful you become. Because financial resilience isn't measured by your possessions. It's measured by your freedom. Freedom to say no. Freedom to walk away. Freedom to live on your terms. That's what men over 50 understand. And it's what makes them unshakable. When you're young, you chase motivation. You watch a movie, listen to a speech, read a quote. And for a moment, you feel unstoppable. But motivation is like sugar. It gives you a burst, but it doesn't last. At 50, you know better. You've learned that if you wait to feel motivated, you'll never get anything done. Because life doesn't care if you're in the mood. Your responsibilities don't disappear just because you don't feel like it. That's where discipline comes in. Discipline is resilience in motion. It's the quiet decision to keep showing up. It's brushing your teeth at night when nobody claps for you. It's making your bed in the morning, not because it changes the world, but because it starts the day with order instead of chaos. Younger men roll their eyes at routines. Older men survive by them, because routines keep you steady when everything else is falling apart. Discipline in your health means eating what fuels you, not what tempts you. Moving every day, even if it's just a walk. Sleeping like your life depends on it, because it does. Discipline in your work means showing up on time even when you'd rather quit. Doing the task right, even when no one's watching. Building something slowly instead of chasing shortcuts. Discipline in your emotions means staying calm when others lose control. Choosing silence over pointless arguments. Training your mind to respond, not react. And discipline in your relationships means being there for the people who rely on you. Keeping promises, even small ones. Apologizing when you're wrong, even if your pride resists. That's the power of discipline. It's not glamorous, nobody will post about it. But it is the foundation of resilience. Because resilience isn't about feeling strong for a day. It's about building habits that make you strong for decades. And here's the paradox. Discipline looks like restriction from the outside, but it's actually freedom. When you're disciplined, you don't waste time debating with yourself. You don't waste energy on guilt, excuses, or regret. You simply do. And that's why men over 50 are powerful in ways younger men can't see. Because by this age, you've realized that a man with discipline doesn't need to shout about his strength. He proves it in every quiet choice he makes. When people think of resilience, they imagine stone faces, clenched fists, unshakable seriousness. But here's the truth. Real resilience isn't about being hard. It's about being light. Life after 50 brings weight. You've seen people you love pass away. You've felt your body slow down. You've carried responsibilities that sometimes felt impossible. If you tried to carry all that with a grim face, you'd break. But if you can laugh, even in the storm, you bend, you breathe, and you keep going. At 20, you laugh at everything. At 30, you laugh at others. But at 50, you laugh at yourself. And that's power. Think about it. The man who can smile at his own mistakes, who can chuckle at his aging knees, who can make a joke about forgetting why he walked into the room, he's untouchable. Because if you can't be embarrassed by life, life loses its grip on you. Younger men panic when things go wrong. Older men shrug, laugh, and say, "Oh, I've seen worse." And laughter isn't denial. It's defiance. It's saying, "This will not steal my spirit." You know what bitterness does. It makes men old before their time. But humor keeps you young, no matter what the calendar says. So yes, resilience is grit. Yes, resilience is discipline. But resilience is also joy. Because if you can carry the weight of life and still keep your smile, then life will never defeat you. Now we reach the deepest layer of resilience: legacy. When you're young, you live for yourself. You live for comfort, for pleasure, for applause. But by 50, you realize life is bigger than you. Legacy isn't built on the loud moments. It's built in the daily ones. The way you show up for your children. The way you keep promises when no one's keeping score. The way you choose character over convenience. You see, resilience after 50 isn't just about surviving your storms. It's about teaching others how to survive theirs. Legacy means your scars become someone else's roadmap. Legacy means your discipline becomes someone else's safety net. Legacy means your strength becomes the backbone of your family, your friendships, your community. Think about the men you admire most. It's not because they were rich or famous. It's because they lived with honor, with steadiness, with courage. And even after they were gone, people could say, "Because of him, I didn't give up." That's legacy. And here's the truth. You don't need a statue, a trophy, or a headline to leave one. You just need to live so resiliently that when people think of strength, they think of you. That's the kind of impact that outlives you. And that's the final proof of resilience. Every man at some point faces storms too heavy for his own shoulders. And it's in those moments that faith becomes resilience. Now, faith doesn't always mean religion. For some, it's God. For others, it's principle. For others still, it's the unshakable belief that life has meaning beyond the chaos. At 20, you think you control everything. At 50, you know better. You've seen enough to understand. You don't control the storm, you only control your response. Faith is the anchor in the storm. You've lost money and rebuilt. You've lost people and carried on. You've faced nights when you didn't know how tomorrow would look. And through it all, faith whispered, "Stand." Faith tells you storms are temporary. Faith tells you struggle has meaning. Faith tells you you're part of something greater than yourself. And here's the truth. A man without faith eventually breaks. Because when life strips away everything external, money, health, applause, the only thing left is what you believe. Younger men lean on energy, pride, and momentum. Older men lean on faith, and that's why they don't shatter. Because when you're standing on faith, you're standing on bedrock. And no storm can wash that away. One of the hardest truths of life after 50 is this: you lose. You lose people you thought you'd never live without. You lose friends to distance, to time, to death. You lose dreams you once held tight. You lose parts of your body's strength. And yet, here you are. Loss is the ultimate test of resilience, because it doesn't just take, it leaves a hole. And it's in that hole you discover what you're really made of. Younger men run from loss. They distract themselves, numb themselves, pretend it doesn't hurt. But men over 50, you've lived long enough to know that grief is part of love. Every tear is proof you cared deeply. Every ache in your chest is evidence that something mattered. And resilience isn't pretending you don't feel it. It's feeling it fully and carrying on anyway. Loss has a strange way of sharpening your life. When someone you love is gone, you realize how fragile every moment is. You learn to say, "I love you," while you can. You learn to hug longer. You learn that small moments, coffee with a friend, laughter at the dinner table, are priceless. Resilience through loss doesn't mean forgetting. It means honoring. It means living in a way that carries their memory with you. And here's the quiet truth. The men who survive loss and still keep their hearts open are the strongest of us all, because it's easy to harden, to close off, to shut down. But resilience means loving again, hoping again, living again, despite the pain. And that's why men over 50, scarred by loss but still standing, are unbreakable. Fatherhood is one of the greatest tests of resilience. When you're young, you think strength is measured by what you accomplish. When you're older, you realize it's measured by who you raise, who you guide, who you protect. Fatherhood isn't about perfection. It's about showing up. It's about patience when you're tired. It's about sacrifice when you'd rather choose yourself. It's about leading not just with words, but with actions. At 25, you want your children to admire you for your energy. At 50, you want them to admire you for your steadiness. Resilience in fatherhood means teaching lessons not through lectures, but through example. Your child doesn't remember every speech you gave, but they remember watching you push through when life got hard. They remember how you handled loss. They remember how you treated people. They remember whether you stood tall in the storm or crumbled. And here's the truth. Children don't need perfect fathers. They need resilient ones. They need to see that life can knock you down, but you always rise again. And for men over 50, fatherhood becomes something even deeper. It's not just raising children. It's mentoring young adults, guiding them through storms you once faced. That's resilience, not just enduring for yourself, but enduring so you can pass on the blueprint to the next generation. By the time you're 50, you've made mistakes, plenty of them. Maybe you married the wrong person the first time. Maybe you trusted someone who betrayed you. Maybe you wasted years in the wrong job. Maybe you broke someone's heart or your own. And regret. Regret can be poison. Younger men often drown in it. They replay every wrong choice, every lost opportunity, every what if, until it eats them alive. But men over 50, you learn something different. You learn that regret is useless unless you turn it into growth. Resilience against regret means this: you don't deny your mistakes. You don't wallow in them either. You face them, you own them, and you say, "That chapter is over, but I'm not." Younger men waste time wishing they could go back. Older men know the only power is moving forward. And here's the truth. Regret is proof you cared. You cared enough to want to do better. You cared enough to want a different outcome. So instead of letting it chain you, you turn it into fuel. You let regret sharpen your decisions. You let it teach you patience, wisdom, empathy. You let it remind you the past is fixed, but the future is still wide open. That's resilience, not living without mistakes, but refusing to let mistakes define you. One of the rarest strengths in today's world is silence. Younger men can't stand it. They fill every moment with noise, music, social media, arguments, distractions. They think being loud means being strong. But men over 50 know the truth. Silence is power. Resilience in silence means you don't need to respond to every insult. You don't need to explain yourself to every critic. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room because you already know your worth. Silence gives you clarity. It gives you space to think. It lets you observe, understand, and respond wisely instead of reacting recklessly. Think about it. When you were younger, how many times did your mouth get you into trouble? How many times did you say something in anger you couldn't take back? But by 50, you've learned. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is keep your mouth shut and let time prove you right. Silence isn't weakness. It's control. Because the man who can hold his tongue holds his power. And that's why resilient men don't waste words. When they speak, people listen. Because they've proven they don't speak just to be heard. They speak when it matters. When you're young, you chase more. More money, more attention, more possessions, more noise. But the older you get, the more you realize. Resilience doesn't come from excess. It comes from simplicity. At 20, you clutter your life with things you don't need, people who drain you, and goals that aren't really yours. At 50, you start cutting away. You stop caring about impressing strangers. You stop wasting money on things that don't matter. You stop filling your time with people who add nothing but drama. And here's the truth. Simplicity is strength. Because when life is simple, it's clear. And clarity is resilience. Younger men get lost in distraction. Older men know peace comes from focus. It's not about how many things you own, it's about how many things you can live without. It's not about having more time, it's about making time for what matters. It's not about chasing everything, it's about choosing a few things and pouring yourself fully into them. And simplicity isn't boring, it's powerful, because when you've stripped away the noise, what's left is unshakable. Your values, your people, your purpose. That's resilience. Not in the chaos of more, but in the clarity of less. Forgiveness is one of the hardest forms of resilience. When you're young, you think holding a grudge makes you strong. You think anger protects you. You think refusing to forgive keeps you in control. But the truth is, grudges don't hurt the other person half as much as they hurt you. By 50, you've carried enough pain to know this. Bitterness is heavy, and the longer you carry it, the more it breaks you down. Resilience in forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting what someone did. It doesn't mean trusting them again. It doesn't even mean letting them back into your life. Forgiveness means you refuse to let their actions control your heart anymore. It means you put the weight down so you can keep moving forward. Younger men think forgiveness is weakness. Older men know it's strength, because it takes more strength to let go than to hold on. It takes more courage to release anger than to feed it. And here's the paradox. When you forgive, you don't set them free. You set yourself free. Resilience is walking lighter, and nothing lightens the load more than forgiveness. Resilience doesn't come from one big moment. It comes from what you do every single day. When you're young, you underestimate the power of routine. You think greatness comes from one big decision, one big risk, one big win. But by the time you're 50, you've learned greatness is built in rituals. The little things you repeat daily are the bricks of resilience. Making your bed in the morning, it's not about the bed. It's about starting the day with order instead of chaos. Drinking water first thing. It's not about the glass. It's about reminding yourself, I take care of me. Reading a few pages of wisdom, it's not about the book. It's about sharpening your mind before the world dulls it. Walking, stretching, breathing. It's not about exercise. It's about staying in motion, proving to yourself that you still own your body. Younger men roll their eyes at habits. Older men live by them. Because when the storms come, you don't rise to the occasion. You fall to the level of your rituals. And that's why rituals matter. They train your mind to keep going even when you're tired. They build resilience quietly, invisibly, day by day. So, yes, resilience is forged in the big storms. But it's maintained in the small, daily choices. And when you master those, when your life is anchored in rituals, you become unshakable. There's one truth every man over 50 begins to face. Life is finite. In your 20s, you feel immortal. In your 30s, you still think you've got all the time in the world. But in your 50s, you begin to see the horizon, and that can feel terrifying, unless you use it as fuel. Mortality isn't the enemy, it's the motivator. Because knowing life is short makes every day heavier with meaning. It reminds you to stop wasting time on nonsense. It pushes you to speak the words you've been holding back. It teaches you to appreciate the mornings, the laughs, the meals, the little things because you know they're not endless. Younger men waste years chasing things that don't matter. Older men realize every year counts. Every moment counts. Every breath counts. And here's the truth. Resilience isn't pretending you'll live forever. It's embracing the fact that you won't, and living fully anyway. Mortality sharpens you. It strips away the trivial. It demands you live with urgency, with gratitude, with courage. And the man who accepts death doesn't fear life. He lives it boldly. That's resilience at its highest level, not only enduring life's storms, but embracing its brevity and using it as fire. One of the hardest but most liberating lessons men over 50 learn is this. Resilience often means letting go. When you're younger, you cling. You cling to friendships that no longer serve you because you're afraid of being alone. You cling to dreams that are long dead because you're afraid of starting fresh. You cling to grudges because you think anger protects you. But holding on doesn't make you stronger, it makes you heavy. Resilience in letting go is about knowing the difference between what's worth fighting for and what's worth releasing. Think about it. How many times did you fight to keep something that was already slipping away? A relationship that drained you more than it filled you. A career path that paid the bills but crushed your soul. A version of yourself that belonged to your 20s, not your 50s. Letting go is not giving up. It's choosing peace over poison. It's saying, this no longer belongs in my life, and I refuse to let it weigh me down any longer. It takes courage to walk away. It takes strength to forgive without demanding an apology. It takes wisdom to recognize that sometimes closing a door is the only way to open a better one. And here's the paradox. The moment you let go, you realize you didn't lose. You gained. You gained clarity. You gained space for new beginnings. You gained freedom. That's resilience. Not in gripping the past with bloody knuckles, but in opening your hand and walking forward lighter, freer, stronger. The final ingredient of resilience, the one that holds it all together, is gratitude. Not the shallow kind. The kind that fades when life gets tough. But the deep gratitude that comes from knowing just how fragile life really is. At 20, you assume everything will always be there. At 30, you're too busy chasing more to notice what you already have. But at 50, you've seen how quickly life can change. You've lost people suddenly. You've had health scares that woke you up. You've had money appear and disappear, and through it all, you've realized the small things were always the big things. The morning sun on your face, the sound of your child's or grandchild's laughter, the hug from a friend who stuck with you through decades, the simple fact that you woke up today with another chance to live. That's gratitude. Younger men complain about what's missing. Older men give thanks for what remains, because they've seen how quickly it can all be gone. And gratitude doesn't just make you kinder. It makes you tougher, because the man who can say, even with scars, even with losses, even with pain, I am grateful, is a man who cannot be broken. Resilience in gratitude means this: every breath is a gift, every day is a second chance, every storm is proof you're still standing, and that gratitude fuels resilience more than anything else, because it keeps your heart alive, even in the darkest nights. When you're young, patience feels like weakness. You want everything now, success now, love now, recognition now. But by 50, you've learned that everything important in life takes time. Patience isn't passivity. It's strength under control. It's the ability to wait without breaking. It's the ability to move slowly but steadily toward what matters, instead of sprinting toward what fades. Think about it. It took patience to raise children, patience to build a career, patience to recover from loss, patience to heal after heartbreak. Younger men rush, and because they rush, they stumble. Older men pace themselves, and because they pace themselves, they finish the race. Resilience in patience means you don't panic when things take longer than expected. You don't collapse when doors close. You don't quit when the harvest doesn't come in a season. You've learned, plant today, water daily, wait faithfully, and eventually the harvest comes. And that patience, that quiet endurance, is why men over 50 carry a strength the world can't take away. Here's something people don't talk about enough. Love itself takes resilience. At 20, love feels like fireworks. At 30, it feels like possession. But at 50 and beyond, real love feels like resilience. Because to love is to be vulnerable, to risk being hurt, to choose another person's well-being again and again, even when it's not convenient. Maybe you've loved and lost. Maybe you've been betrayed. Maybe you've carried the grief of a broken relationship, and yet here you are, still capable of loving, still capable of giving, still capable of opening your heart. That is resilience, because bitterness is easy, shutting down is easy. Walking away from love is easy, but the men who keep their hearts open, even after being broken, those are the strongest men alive. Love demands sacrifice. Love demands forgiveness. Love demands patience, loyalty, and courage. And when a man over 50 loves, with scars, with wisdom, with depth, that love is unshakable. Because it's not built on ego or infatuation. It's built on resilience. 28 truths. 28 ways men over 50 prove that resilience isn't fading. It's multiplying. You've endured storms. You've carried loss. You've faced regret, silence, patience, and love. And all of it has shaped you into a man who doesn't just survive. He stands unbroken. Because resilience isn't youth. Resilience isn't muscle. Resilience isn't noise. Resilience is scars turned into wisdom. Resilience is discipline turned into freedom. Resilience is gratitude, patience, faith, forgiveness, and love. Resilience is standing in the storm, laughing at the rain, and still walking forward. So if you are a man over 50, hear me. Your prime is not in the past. It is here. It is now. Carry your scars with pride. Carry your gratitude with strength. Carry your patience with courage. Carry your love with resilience. Because nothing can break a man who has already risen again and again. If this message gave you value, don't let it end here. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and stay with us every week. Because resilience isn't built in one lesson. It's built in a lifetime of them. This is Stoicism Mastermind. And your journey to strength doesn't end here. It only grows.